Out here by Delgado Community College is a little place called Holt Cemetery. You see, typically in New Orleans, cemeteries feature tombs that are above the ground. This is because of the water level in the area. Anything buried in the ground is usually flooded out or whatever by rainwater and such. But this cemetery is the only one of its kind in New Orleans where there are graves buried in the ground. It is what's considered a potter's field cemetery, which means these are graves for people that are unable to afford the better means of a nicer cemetery or tomb for their family. The plots for these graves are typically passed down from family to family, with the intention that the family would keep the plot clear of debris or weeds or grass or overgrowth or whatever. And the way that the people are buried here, they're buried in wooden caskets because the wooden casket will deteriorate quickly in the water or rain that falls down here. Unfortunately, you can see that some of the grave sites are not very well kept and have deteriorated beyond recognition of what they actually used to be. Many of them were outlined with wood or plastic or PVC pipe or roofing shingles or whatever they could find. Here you see one plot is outlined with wood over an older version of the plot outlined with some sort of metal, and some of these are located right next to a ditch. This one here has all but rotted away. You can't even see what the headstone might have said. Some of the plots don't even have an outline. Some are just a mound of dirt. Looks like there's a lot of veterans buried in here as well. A lot of the graves out here look to be marked with World War I and World War II, Korean War, stuff like that. It's this big, huge, I'm guessing that's an oak tree, kind of at the center of this part of the cemetery. With all the moss hanging off of it. Looks kind of eerie. Somebody here has left an old Bible. And from what I understand, people come and leave gifts, such as beer bottles. It's not just somebody sitting out here drinking. Like, they come and they leave this stuff out here for their family or whatever that are out here. They leave toys for kids and flowers, of course, but beer bottles and pieces of fruit and whatnot. And you can see right here a handmade, hand-carved headstone. Here's a plot that was obviously for a child with some toys. And this one here outlined with painted garden cement decorations. Another World War II headstone. This place is pretty big. Here's one outline with those little like roofing caps and I'm guessing some kind of piping or something for the headstone cross. And some of these are just falling apart completely, or just a mountain of dirt or a mountain of rocks. And I've heard with the water that comes in here, sometimes like this one here with the mountain of dirt, sometimes the bones poke out through the dirt sometimes after a hard rain. Pretty weird. I have not seen any bones poking out, thank God. Right here, it looks to be an outdoor incinerator where they must have cremated the bodies back in the day. I don't think this has been used in a very long time. And it is, in fact, sealed shut. But it's weird that this is just kind of standing out here all by itself. This little bottom section is open down here. I'm going to look inside and see if we can see anything interesting. See this burned out piece of wood, but just some Old flowers and stuff in there. Nothing too weird or exciting. So there was a guy out here telling me this story about a girl that went to the school next to the cemetery, and apparently she was caught a couple of years ago stealing bones out of the graves, because apparently she was a witch of some sort and she was using these bones for some sort of spells or whatever, but she got caught stealing bones from the graves and using them for whatever. Of course, she got arrested because she was posting pictures of it on her Facebook page or whatever social media that she was using, and so they found her and arrested her, and I guess kicked her out of school, and she moved back to whatever state that she is from. But a very, very interesting story indeed. All these old oak trees in here, man, it just makes everything look so extra creepy, with the moss hanging off of them and stuff. So from what I understand, this canal or this ditch is here for when it rains. The rainwater can run down to the canal and out of the cemetery, so the water doesn't build up in the cemetery, even though it does anyway. But that's the purpose of this ditch being here. Most people in New Orleans know what these things are, but if you've ever seen this in your yard, that is a crawfish hole. And this oak tree has fallen at some point and covered up a lot of these old graves and grown over these things, and you can't even hardly get to some of them. And I guess they've just decided to leave the tree there and not remove it. You can kind of get in here and see. You can see the graves that are covered up by the branches. Here's one. Headstone. Can't read it. The weirdest part about walking around in here is to make sure you're not stepping on somebody's grave. Everything's just kind of meshed together, so it's hard to figure out where to walk. This old headstone's just about buried into the ground at this point. Out of all the cemeteries that I've visited so far, this one is the most fascinating one. To see these in-the-ground graves in such disrepair, and to see all the gifts that are left by people, and the way some of these grave plots are made. It's interesting. You go from mountains of dirt to elaborate cemented grave sites. Do not remove objects or markers from grave sites. Yeah, not a good idea. Please don't do that. A lot of the headstones for these graves are handmade or made from various objects found. And some are professionally made. You know, some of them are just pieces of wood, or some of them are pieces of metal, just kind of shoved in there with handwritten stuff on it. This one's a street sign that somebody took and hand wrote their loved one's name on there and stuck it in as a headstone. That's crazy. This looks like a child's grave. A little teddy bear in there. Sad. Holt Cemetery is a fascinating place. If you ever get a chance to come check it out, please do. Alright, see you guys next time.